Sooner or later, however, they settle to Earth. This is Fallout, and it can be very dangerous if you don't know what to do about it. Well, do you know what to do about it, Grandpa?
Welcome to the end of the Classic Fallout Iceberg series, where we've gone over the older games and media of the franchise, including theories and lesser known lore. And while we're almost out of entries to cover, rest assured, we still have 4 final levels to go through, and I'm going to be throwing in some custom entries at the end for good measure. Thank you to everyone for supporting the series so far and giving your entry ideas. This is the final volume of the Classic Fallout Iceberg, and let's get right into it. The voice casts for the older Fallout games were exceptional. Like, right off the bat in Fallout 1, you got Ron Perlman, Jim Cummings, Keith David, Clancy Brown, and that's just some of the cast. I'm almost surprised they were able to get those names for a first entry in a series, especially a B project, although it definitely helped that voice director Jamie Thomason was on board the project and not only had the talent he did, but the connections as well. The sequels also had some really phenomenal voice actors, and some who weren't good. Fallout Brotherhood of Steel isn't canon. Gizmo is the owner of Gizmo's Casino in Junktown, and he seems pretty bad. He tries to wipe out his business competitor Killian Darkwater, who's also the mayor of the town. In general, Gizmo's just really unpleasant and isn't a good guy actually at all. But that being said, there is more to Gizmo than being a fat evil casino man. Originally, he was designed to be good for Junktown. In what was intended to be something of a surprise dark twist, siding with Killian and bringing Gizmo to justice keeps Junktown from living up to its full potential. Meanwhile, siding with Gizmo and killing Killian would have benefited the town, making it safer and its inhabitants richer. According to Fallout programmer Jesse Heinig, the reason it was cut was because marketing decided at the last minute that the game had to, quote, reward good and punish bad. But then again, Tim also has a different explanation for why the endings got cut, citing a lack of telegraphing the consequences to players.
We were worried we led people down the wrong path though, and that, hey, I'm fighting really hard to make this, to do the right thing, and then I'm punished when the game ends. So I'm not sure I'd change that, but I would probably put in more indications that if I were to change it, I'd put in more indications that helping this seemingly bad guy would be a good thing. It was too random. I think that's why it got changed.
Even going off the endings not cut from the game, however, it seems Gizmo's is a slightly better one. Junktown becomes a boomtown, becomes more profitable, and Gizmo dies no matter what. It's a win-win for everyone. Gizmo is really evil, but he would make his town thrive. It makes you take a step back and realize this is the wasteland, and morals just might be a thing of the past. Because whereas one could easily see Gizmo as a greedy murderer, one could also see him as a good guy. Except I don't, so, there's that. The clay figures could be lost in an old Interplay office. There's no proof of this, but we don't know where they are, so it could possibly be the case. Sodor Fallout is a post-apocalyptic fanfiction series about Thomas the Tank Engine, created by Tidmouth Thunderbolt. Sodor being the name of the island Thomas the Train is set in, and Fallout being what happens during the story. There's some kind of explosion thought to be caused by a nuclear meltdown, and forced mutations caused by a chemical injection. It's a Fallout and Chernobyl-inspired Thomas the Tank Engine fanfiction series that seems to have its own little fan following. Junktown is only recycled content. Because, the town's made of junk content that's been recycled into a new purpose. Get it? Well, that, and there are assets reused from the Fallout 1 demo and certain ideas carried over into Junktown. The scrap heap aesthetic, the conflict between two factions looking to control the town, the dog meat standoff, It's all there in the demo, and it all got reworked into Junktown. The original idea for Fallout 1 was to make it a fantasy game, then was to make a time-traveling adventure with sentient dinosaurs, magical fantasy planets, and a Save the Girl plotline. If that sounds like a weird mishmash of things, that was kind of the point. At the time, the project did have the GURPS license, which allows for playing in any genre, since it's the generic universal role-playing system. So initially, Tim and his team decided to make a universal RPG with anything and everything. Except a producer quickly pointed out they couldn't make something like this, and the idea got scrapped. According to Scott Campbell, the next idea that followed was a successor to Wasteland. Instead of Wasteland 2, it'd be GURPS Wasteland, where the player was a desert ranger sent to Southern California to deal with an uprising. Sadly, Interplay's legal counsel told the devs that EA still retained the rights, so they said screw EA and went about making a spiritual successor instead. With a post-apocalyptic game in mind, next came a story about an alien invasion. The planet was conquered except for one city, where the player lived and had to leave to go beat the aliens. And from here, we see the early inklings of Fallout. A human survivor being from a sanctuary, having to venture outside and defeat a great evil. Scott goes over a couple of more ideas, including a furry apocalypse and a zombie one. But then came the idea of vaults Tim apparently had in a dream. And according to Scott, from this one seed would come an entire game that we know now kickstarted a franchise. Fallout 1 is a bleak game, to the point there's entire videos on this subject. But to keep it short, Fallout 1 is a lot darker compared to the other Fallout games. Those had pop culture references and more wasteland wackiness, whereas this one is played more straight and has a far more brooding atmosphere. I mean, this is a game that starts off with an execution in its intro cutscene. The main quest is saving your vault from dying of dehydration. Then add in elements like the time limit, the originally planned mutant invasions, the Necropolis moral dilemma, plasma guns being horrific killing machines, and that ending. And you start to see what makes Fallout 1 stand out compared to the other games. Sure, there's still humor and lighthearted moments in it, but the first Fallout is a hell of a bleak game. Fallout 2 was censored too. From my research, there's multiple icons in the game that have been replaced. All of them tie into drug use, and what would you know, drugs are a debacle all throughout the Fallout series. In Fallout 3, morphine had to become Med-X to appease the Australians, and in Fallout 2, mentions of drugs became mentions of chems. I also don't know if this is a bug or censorship, but whenever I eat the mutated toe, I don't get the custom message that's supposed to play for it, and it's happened on multiple playthroughs for me. Is this censorship or just a bug? You can be the judge of that. What makes things so odd is that the one thing censored in Fallout 1, not censored in 2, is children. They're in the game, and you can kill them if you want to. But drugs were too much? I just don't understand censorship sometimes. This video link is just a text-to-voice reading of the Fallout 2 Toxic Caves creepypasta, except the title is Fallout 2 Secret Ending.
In Fallout 2, after you beat the game, you can continue playing.
Fallout 2 has two main endings. One is to the main campaign, which is the only one amongst the classic games that lets you keep playing post-ending. And the other one is the 13-year after ending, which just ends the game no matter what. Basically, play Fallout 2 for 13 in-game years, and you'll be greeted with a short cutscene that serves as the end of a playthrough. While the 13-year after ending is basically a big time limit in the game, you don't really have to worry about it. Like, really, you don't. You'll probably finish the game in a year or two if you're slow, and still have a decade to go. Plus, a lot of people don't even know it's a thing compared to the time limit in Fallout 1, so that should say a lot. The San Francisco Secret Place is a cult location accessed by going to San Francisco and pressing the 5 key. This will transport you to an unfinished map that would have been the Hoopologist space shuttle's interior. We know this because interacting with certain tiles gives you a notification that you're seeing a shuttle interior. The Hoopologists are the game's Scientology parody, and have a space shuttle they're planning on going into space with that's doomed no matter what. Lost Fallout 1 and 2 web pages refers to lost media for the original Fallout games. Websites don't last forever if they're not archived, and links can die. That includes links to the original Fallout 1 and 2 websites and pages. Fortunately, we do have the Wayback Machine to see some of that stuff, and alternate search engines like Wibby. But officially speaking, the websites aren't supported anymore, and could be fully lost one day. So let's enjoy them while we can. Ian is a companion in Fallout 1, and he's gotten a bad rap over the years. Namely, for wanting to kill the player. See, companions in Fallout can deal damage to the player by missing shots or accidentally hitting you if you're standing in front of their target. It's annoying, but it's usually just a single bullet you're getting hit with. Not with Ian though. Give Ian the SMG, and he'll almost always use the devastating burst shot firing mode, especially into you. So Ian's something of a joke in the Fallout community. There's just something goofy and memorable about what's supposed to be your loyal companion turning you into mincemeat, and it kinda makes the whole character. Ian's a pretty bland, forgettable companion, except for this one trait that makes him unforgettable. It's kinda like Gandhi in Civilization. No one would remember him if he didn't do something as out of pocket as dropping nukes. Likewise, no one would remember Ian if he didn't do something like killing them. I actually have no idea what Verts is. I mean, there's Verts Fluoro mods. Leave a comment if you have an idea what this is. I lean towards joke entry, but who knows. There is someone who is still developing the game. Except, not quite. I don't think Bethesda is working right now on remastering the old games, and I don't think they're being tinkered on in any official capacity. That being said, modders are still working on them, patching in new features and fixing old bugs. They're still developing these games. Then, to go a bit further with this, there are people working on Fallout-like games, making something reminiscent of the classics, and undoubtedly more projects like this will come, with their own twists and personalities. So while we might not get another Fallout like Fallout anytime soon, we do still have people developing the games. We Need Them is an entry that's pretty ambiguous. If I had to guess, it could mean someone saying that we need the old games. We need them to remind us what was lost. The role-playing, the dark writing, the choices and reactivity to your actions. We need the classic games because, if anything else, they're great RPGs that remind us what we're missing out on. Fallout Tactics 2 is not in development. Even the Iceberg creator said so. Next entry. Full disclaimer, the Iceberg creator said this entry was just a reference to the every Mario 64 copies personalized meme. That being said, on the subject of all Fallout copies being time capsules, I think you could definitely make a case here. If you think about it, the original Fallout game box covers represent a different era of gaming, where creativity and risks could be allowed to pay off. Look at the Fallout 1 manual, for example. Then look at Fallout 4's. It's almost an unfair comparison, and I get why something like this happened. Manufacturing booklets can't be super productive for $1 million franchise that has copies on PC and different consoles. It probably saved a lot of money just to simplify the manual. But then again, Fallout 1 was a B project, and I'd say the bigger cost here is soul, heart, the love put into the game by its creators, which makes gamers love them too. The classic games had so much soul, to the point the game copy itself and its manual reflect the sheer passion of its designers. Whereas the studio had little faith in the game, Tim and his team did, and they made something that stands the test of time. The Unwashed Village is one of the oldest Fallout communities, and while not literally created by Interplay, it was Interplay's games and forums that helped users meet and go on to create this community. What Interplay did create, however, was the Unwashed Villagers encounter in Fallout 2, which involves a bunch of villagers beating up a spammer named the Grim Reaper. It's a reference to an actual troll that was on the Interplay forums, and it was apparently bad enough that they added him into the game just so he could get killed. I was really surprised to find there wasn't an actual entry on No Mutants Allowed in this iceberg, so I'm doing one myself. No Mutants Allowed is a gaming site dedicated to the Fallout series. Former developers have done interviews or given info before to the site, and genuinely speaking, it's a great resource for the old games, and the series in general. You can find concept art, fan art, and mod files for the classic games here easily. Oh, and speaking of mods, thank you to the Lobby of Hobbies 3244 for the suggestion. Fallout 1.5 is a total conversion mod developed by 4 Fallout fans from the Czech Republic. And simply put, it's my favorite Fallout mod I've played so far. I actually have plans to cover this game in more depth on the channel, just because I think it does so many things well, especially the world building and atmosphere. 1.5 is set in 2170 New Mexico, and the game just does such a great job at sucking you in and making you feel how nasty it is. No joke, this is a disturbing mod that will make you feel bad. It's a genuinely mean, vicious wasteland, where being good is the harder path than being evil. Also, it's telling that Fallout 1 was more of an inspiration for 1.5 than Fallout 2 was. The bleakness of the original game is really doubled down upon here. And if you thought the ending of Fallout 1 was upsetting or the evil choices were cruel, trust me, you're not ready for this mod. But if you can stomach the game's edgier aspects and harder difficulty, you'll be in for a great RPG. Thank you to It's Jicky for the suggestion. What happened to Modoc and the Slags? Modoc is a small Californian town and the origin of the Deathclaw omelet, having a locked-up Deathclaw used to make eggs. It was introduced in Fallout 2, where the town was suffering a drought on top of having fears about a nearby ghost farm. A Modoc resident named Carl moved into the place, told them it was haunted by ghosts, and then straight up vanished. When a search party went to the farm looking for him, they found a terrifying sight. The place was littered with bodies on spikes. As it turns out though, the bodies were dummies and Carl just fled to the den. The ghosts weren't actually ghosts either. They were the Slags, descendants of his secret militia with a base underground. Even sheltered from the fallout, they were still mutated by it, given glowing skin and large pupils. So accustomed to living underground, many have developed a fear of falling into the sky, and their fear of outsiders like Carl caused them to scare people away. While players can sit back and let Modoc's fears overwhelm them, causing them to slay the Slags, they can also patch things between the two, allowing them both to flourish.
Relations between the Slags and the residents of Modoc flourished. Between the two peoples, Modoc prospered and became a major farming community, supplying all the outlying regions with food.
This is actually the canon ending and what happened to Modoc and the Slags. We know this because without patching things between the two, every ending is a downer where Modoc dies off. We also have Fallout New Vegas, which makes mention of Modoc's Deathclaw omelets, as well as the town having a Crimson Caravan branch according to a terminal entry. That's basically the last we've heard of Modoc and the Slags. And for now, it's a pretty happy ending. Schizo Elijah was a Fallout YouTuber who loved the classic games in New Vegas. He stated on his YouTube page description that he no longer wanted to make content and wished to pursue God instead. And despite stating he would leave the channel up for archival purposes, it was soon deleted. The only proof I have is a TikTok of all things. I felt like giving him a shout out because he did make some good content, and it does have to do with the older games, as schizoid as it can be. In particular, I thought he had a really solid breakdown of Fallout's economics and the world building around it. At the end of the day though, while I am sad to see him go, I hope he finds happiness. Fallout 1 and 2 are hex-based games. This means that the way characters move around is by moving across a grid on the ground. But this isn't your bog standard square grid. It's a hex-based one. And as a result of the hex design, there's no real way to move up and down smoothly like there is running left and right. Which means you're gonna be doing this goofy looking run throughout the games. Fallout Tactics ended up getting rid of the hex grid entirely, as well as adding in proper up and down running. Lastly, Van Buren would have removed the grid too, so players wouldn't have been running around looking like chem addicts. The true purpose of vaults in Fallout is a video on Tim Kane's YouTube channel, Timothy Kane. Here, he reveals the true nature of the vaults being experiments for the creation of a generation starship that would leave our world and colonize another. The ship would need to last a very long time, and entire generations would live and die aboard it before it ever reached its destination. If anything went wrong, goodbye humanity. So the vaults were basically one big sacrifice for the purpose of perfecting the true savior of humanity, a starship. The thing is, it's most likely non-canon, but I still really like Tim's video. In fact, I made a whole series speculating the purpose of each vault in connection to Tim's starship lore, and that's what got me past 10,000 subscribers. So I really do owe a lot to the true purpose video. Thank you to nplacker as well as Dongle620 for the idea. There is sometimes a difference between what's shown in the classic Fallout games and what's shown in the cutscenes. Case in point, the Master desires to turn Vault Dwellers into super mutants, desiring prime normals untainted by radiation. But cue the bad ending where Vault 13 gets invaded, and people are just casually being gunned down, even those fleeing the mutants. Why is that? Well, a case can be made that this is addressed in-game. The Master does say anyone who resists will be killed. Also, with the player squirming no matter how they sided with the Master, even if they joined willingly, an argument can be made that they're getting second thoughts. Can't say I blame them. But this is stuff you can kinda argue around. Then you get to Fallout 2, and things get weird right away. Now, for context, Vault 13 is hidden away in a cave. Fallout 1's cutscenes show this as well, it's hidden away in a cave. The way Vault 13 is introduced in Fallout 2, meanwhile, is that it's a doorway right by the cave entrance. You might think to yourself, well, maybe the Enclave drilled into the mountain to find Vault 13, or something happened. But no, even in-game, Vault 13 is supposed to be hidden away. Why is there this big difference between the cutscene and the game? It's kinda weird, and I don't think much people have mentioned it. It also makes me think back to those cutscenes we were talking about earlier. Should they get the benefit of the doubt? Or was the animation team and the devs on some kind of different page? Thank you to CringeLord3342 for their comment. Did Fallout 2's devs say Frank Horrigan was only killable so that players could beat the game? I don't think so. I found no quotes from devs saying that, and more people seem to think that it's a rumor started on TikTok more than anything else. So I think it's just a fan rumor more than anything. Thank you to the 0835 Siebel for their comment. Now, they make the argument that you can play Fallout Tactics as a pacifist, and I get it, but I don't know. Ultimately, Fallout Tactics is a combat game where true pacifism is impossible. And by pacifism, I'm going off the definition that any violence is unjustifiable. It requires you to use your characters to get through combat scenarios. Even if, say, you control one non-fighter character like a medic, inevitably, your other characters must kill people to finish the game. But then I thought for a second, and I kinda had this realization. There hasn't really been a true pacifist run in any of the classic Fallouts. Again, going off the definition for pacifism that any violence is unjustifiable. Sure, you can play through a lot of Fallout quests as a non-combat character, but not as a truly non-violent character. In Fallout 2, you will have to kill Dick Richardson and defeat Frank Horrigan to beat the game. There's even a bit of foreshadowing about this in the tutorial. In Fallout 1, you don't have to kill anyone, except you do have to destroy Mariposa military base, which would kill the people inside. It might be for the greater good, but it's still resorting to violence, and not really a truly pacifistic course of action. So this notion that the old school Fallouts had pacifist runs might be a little misguided, for the pacifist run is a lie. Fallout 1 was a groundbreaking game. Sure, there were games before it with time limits, character creation, choices and consequences, and even post-apocalyptic settings. For example, Dark Sun Shattered Lands had a ton of these features, and it came out in 1993, 4 years before Fallout. But it was also a combat-centered game. To put it simply, lots of games had features from Fallout at some level, but none of those games were at Fallout's level. I mean, here came an RPG that gave you a choice not to engage in any combat if you didn't want to. That lives up to the RPG spirit of letting you play how you want to play, more than many modern RPGs. Instead of Dungeons and Dragons, you have ruins and mutant deathclaws. Instead of swords and sorcery, you have guns and energy weapons. Instead of black and white moral dilemmas, you have some gray thrown in, and an evil entity out to end humanity who has a nuanced reasoning behind his actions. And instead of pure combat, you can choose to fight, sneak, or talk your way out of a pickle. The legacy of Fallout cannot be understated. The perk system, where you level up and choose an upgrade, was something that Dungeons & Dragons itself incorporated into later editions of the game. The father of RPGs took a lesson out of Fallout's playbook. That says a lot. Then there's the fact that talking down villains or not confronting them at all is something more players want in games. Even Chris Avellone, who decided to include something like it in his own critically acclaimed game. People are looking at Fallout as a case study in RPG design, wanting more ways of playing instead of pure combat, like how an RPG should be. Basically, Fallout 1 was a game that did so much right, it left a serious impact. And I wanted an entry to at least recognize that. The isometric perspective replicates role-playing in real life. Kind of. So role-playing is something that can be done in a number of ways. I use pencils and paper, but some go the extra mile and play with miniatures, or go the extra mile and deserve the green mile like I did. But anywho, that middle one, playing with miniatures. People do roleplay that way, even if I don't. And it's something the Fallout devs probably knew about because they were role players themselves. So in a way, that isometric perspective of the original Fallouts might replicate role-playing a tiny bit. Think about how role-playing in real life with miniatures would go. You wouldn't be looking at them from a top-down perspective, hovering over them like a god, or seeing things from the perspective down below. You'd be looking at them at an angle, like the isometric perspective shows. Then imagine just playing an RPG from there, using miniatures to move around a map, fighting in turn-based combat, using skill rolls to interact with the world. Again, for the record, I don't use miniatures when playing Dungeons & Dragons, so I could have butchered the experience. It's just something to think about. The connection Fallout has with genuine, real-life role-playing, especially when you consider that Fallout is a true RPG. What I mean by this is that the old Fallout games capture some of the same magic of playing a traditional tabletop RPG, translating that experience into a digital format. You'd think more games would want to try to do this, but it seems most RPGs nowadays take after computer RPGs, cannibalizing each other instead of turning to the heart of the genre, like Fallout did. Here's some proof. 1. You create your own character. In an age where a lot of RPGs, even good ones, force you to play as a pre-made character, Fallout 1 and 2 allow you to create your own. You choose their name and stats, you craft a character, and have the freedom to roleplay them in a lot of different ways. Good, bad, charming, stupid. It's up to you, and I find myself loving this character building model more than the ones in other great games because it has more of that RPG spirit to it. It's more in line with what you do playing a tabletop RPG like D&D. You wouldn't want to pick some pre-made character to play as. You'd want to make your own. And Fallout allows that. 2. There are multiple options to handling problems. In the new Fallout games, there's a big emphasis on combat, to the point it's practically unavoidable. But in the old games, remember, if you play your cards right, violence isn't your only option most of the time. You can talk, sneak, or run past your problems if you want to, or you can just go in guns blazing. Quests have multiple ways of finishing them, notably the Rescue Tandy quest line. She gets kidnapped by the cons, and if you want to, you can save her in a ton of ways. You can shoot up the place she's held captive at, sneak in and break her out peacefully, negotiate her release, pay for release, challenge the leader to a fight, or even make a high luck character which will get mistaken for the leader's dead dad, scaring the cons into giving you Tandy. Also, you could always just let them have her or kill her yourself. There's multiple ways of handling the quest, including failing it. That's some real freedom, and while it's not like the game is endless in emergent possibilities the same way actual role-playing can be, it does give enough options to get the brain working, coming up with natural solutions instead of pulling the trigger mindlessly, which reminds me of actual D&D. One of my favorite sessions was the time me and my friends attended this royal dinner. I was a kobold criminal, and the king wanted my head, basically. But I still wanted to attend the dinner, so one of my party members cast True Polymorph on me to change my appearance to a gnome. Except I did make some blunders speaking to the king, and he became very suspicious of my character, to the point he didn't let me excuse myself from the table when the hour was about to approach. My spell was coming to an end, and all of a sudden, everyone at the table is just pitching ideas how to get me the hell out of there. Stuff like letting a rat familiar loose across the table, faking a heart attack, using modify memory on the host. And the choice we ended up going with, or should I say, the choice my buddy Sean ended up going with, interrupting everybody, was to grab a plate and throw it at the royal guard. It didn't work out. But I say all this because that freedom of role-playing is something the older games chased, making it so much more than the average RPG. Also, I bring it up because just like how the royal dinner was a failure, Fallout lets you be one as well. There's consequences to your choices. Do the stupid thing, and you're gonna be punished. Insult someone, and they probably won't want to talk to you, or see you breathing for that matter. There are bad endings you can get, and if you go to certain dangerous locations, the enemies won't be downskilled to match your level. They'll eat you alive. Sometimes literally. In an age where I don't think designers want to punish players for making mistakes, Fallout makes you use your head, scaring players into living like a wastelander, getting you immersed into the world. That's role-playing. And finally, Fallout was made by gamers. It was made by people who played the likes of D&D and GURPS, and were then translating that kind of experience into a video game. Fallout started as a GURPS licensed RPG after all, and even though that license fizzled out, the soul of tabletop gaming didn't. It's what made Fallout what it is, a classic. I think this is why there's such a magic to the classic Fallouts, especially compared to newer Fallouts. I mean, you'll have your RPGs cite Fallout as a big source of inspiration, and that's all well and good, but you might notice something missing. Where's the tabletop inspiration? The OG source of RPGs. That's what inspired the likes of Fallout, and that's what not only made it a real RPG, but a classic. And that's it. Thank you so much for enduring the Classic Fallout Iceberg series. It's been a heck of a ride, but you can actually get off it now. Or not. stick around, I got a quick update to talk about. Technically, there's going to be one final video in the series, but it's just the complete series video or supercut where all the volumes are merged together into one horrific amalgamation. And I hope people enjoy it. I also wanted to say I'm working on some more Fallout projects and some non-Fallout projects as well. I do want to make some more Sopranos content, for example, even though HBO seems to be really putting the banhammer on that type of stuff, so it's tough, but you'll see. If you want to help support the channel, please don't forget to drop a like, comment, and subscribe. I know it sounds corny, but it really does make a difference. And also, consider supporting me on Patreon. Right now, it's just $1 to join, and it makes you a champion of the wastes. Instead of being Wasteland Bones, you get to be a Wasteland Champion. If you're not a fan of Patreon, I have other donations in the description, or if you want to help me in another way, you can always give ideas, suggestions, or feedback in the comments below. It really does mean a lot to hear what you guys think of the videos, and see what you want going forward. Thank you guys for watching the series, and all your support so far. I do mean it when I say much more to come. In the meantime, stay safe out there.